get more analysis, and joining us from Sydney this morning, Adam Boyton, Chief Economist for Australia at Deutsche Bank. Adam, what are you expecting from the RBA?
Good morning. I'm expecting the RBA to be on hold today, but as you pointed out in that introduction, it is a very close call. 13 economists say a cut, 12 say on hold. On balance, we're on the on-hold camp because we think things in Europe have just improved enough over the past week or so to pull the RBA back from a further insurance easing.
Are you sure, Adam? I can let you change your mind considering in light of the S&P news that we got this morning.
Look, I think with the S&P news, certainly that's potentially a negative, but we won't really know what S&P are going to do for a little while. On the positive side, in Europe, we saw Italian 10-year bond yields close sub 6%. So there was some good news in Europe as well overnight, and I'll stick with the on-hold call, no rate cut for now.
Okay, no rate cut from now. When do you think we'll see another rate cut from the RBA then?
To my mind, I think we're waiting until the first quarter of next year. We think the commodity price declines we've seen, combined with the currency staying around parity, will exert some, will present some headwinds for the economy. We think the RBA might ease further in the first quarter, but it's certainly a close call today. And if they do cut today, I think it'll be hard to find too much fault with the RBA board.
Okay, and what about some of the economists in our survey pointing to a slowing growth in China, of course, the ongoing European sovereign debt crisis, which you already highlighted, but do you have concerns about how, I guess, China's demand for Australian raw materials might be affecting the economy going forward?
I think from the RBA's perspective, they probably won't be too worried about the declines we've seen in the Chinese PMIs. I think they'll be waiting for a bit more confirmation. On the other side of that China ledger, of course, we haven't seen commodity prices make new lows. That iron ore is actually up off the lows that it was at a little while ago, a few weeks ago, and that broader commodity prices really haven't dipped lower again. So I think while some of the Chinese data have been weak, that hasn't really flowed through into commodity prices. And on the flip side, the US data have generally surprised to the upside over the past month.
That's true. I got to agree with you on that one. So, Adam, going forward, what do you think is going to be the key economic data points the RBA is going to look at closely to make their interest rate decisions? And as you said, an interest rate cut maybe in the first quarter.
I think there are two key things that you need to look at for the RBA. The first is what's the domestic labour market doing. I think that softness in the domestic labour market was one of the triggers behind the November easing that we had at that point in time a fairly soft employment growth outlook in Australia, certainly fairly soft over the first half of the year. And then the second question is, look, what happens in Europe? And that's obviously the big unknown for the RBA. I think if conditions in Europe were to deteriorate, then the RBA would certainly be much more aggressive in the early part of next year. However, as I said earlier, I think the RBA may take a little bit of comfort from some of the policy steps we've seen out of Europe in the past week.
Yeah, Adam, I know you're the chief Australian economist for Deutsche Bank, but you got to have some view on what's going to happen at this European Leaders Summit this Friday. Your expectations?
I think we're actually moving in the right direction in Europe. Certainly, I think the moves toward closer fiscal integration are certainly a positive. I'm not too concerned about what we've seen from some of the rating agencies over the past 24 hours or so. We'll worry about that if and when we get there down the track. But certainly I'm encouraged by the fact that European leaders still seem very determined to resolve this issue and continue to take steps toward closer integration.
Okay, Adam, it's been a pleasure. We'll watch out for that RBA decision a little bit later on. Adam Boyton, Chief Australia Economist at Deutsche